Well, greetings and good morning, Business 22 students. This is Mr.D. This is week number 5 in our 8-week course in managerial communications here at Norco College. And this week we're going to be looking at two chapters, chapters 8 and 9, on positive and negative messages. And so obviously, most messages are going to be positive, just routine messages that you share in your corporation, in your company, or in your workplace. But negative messages are also very prevalent. And sometimes you have to say no. Sometimes you can't meet the obligation. Sometimes you don't have the product available any longer. So, learning how to write a negative message in a way that encourages continued relationship and doesn't offend the party that's listening or is disrespectful towards them is extremely important. So we're going to be learning about those two things this week. We're also going to be writing, I believe, a negative news email. And so this is where we'll be focusing on putting into practice what we're learning. And just so you know, negative messages typically utilize what's called the indirect strategy in order to make the delivery of that negative news as positive as it can be. And if you remember, we already studied the indirect strategy a little bit. It's basically where you don't reveal the main idea until after you've given all the reasons for it or leading up to it. In this case of a negative news message, you're not going to reveal the negative news until after you've given all of the reasons for the negative news. So it's kind of like you're beating around the bush a little bit and building up to what you want to reveal. So you're giving them all the reasons for it, and then you tell them what it is. So it should follow the format of utilizing what's called a buffer, and you'll learn about that this week. It's kind of a neutral statement that kind of lessens the blow of what's to come, kind of makes everybody go, yeah, I agree. It could be a praise, it could be some kind of an appreciation or acknowledgement, it could be some neutral statement that everybody agrees with. Things like, hey, as we all understand, we have to learn how to save money, right? So that might be the, hey, yeah, we do. We all need to learn how to save money. And then you get into, well, we need to make cutbacks to save money, right? At the end of that. So that might be the neutral statement that you start with. So you start with the buffer, a neutral statement, then you continue with all the reasons for the negative news, but not giving the negative news yet. Then you give the negative news. Then you give a courteous close, closing the message, usually some kind of a thank you or commendation or appreciation for their compliance, whatever it might be. So it should follow that format. So when it comes to your writing assignment this week, I'll be looking for you to use that format. I'll be looking for a buffer. I'll be looking for the reasons for the negative news, then the negative news, then a courteous close. So that's what we'll be considering. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here, and I'm going to go ahead and share our class in Canvas. So here we are, managerial communications. We happen to be now in module number 2. It's our second week in module number 2. So I'm going to scroll down here, and I don't have everything published here. Let me do that. So you're probably already looking at it. Here we go. All right, so this week again, we have some PowerPoint slides. We have chapters 8 and 9, so make sure you view those after reading the textbook. You have a check-in assignment on chapters 8 and 9, so make sure you read those and that you do those. They're just going to be, I think, 2 questions on each chapter. You have a quiz on chapters 8 and 9, so read the book, look at the PowerPoints, do the check-in, do the quiz, and then after all of that, go ahead and start on your writing assignment number 2. Actually, I think I give you an option. You can either write a positive routine message or a negative email. So I think they're both emails. I'm not sure, but you can choose one or the other, but make sure they're both an email. Now, when it comes to an email needs to be formatted properly as well. And you might say, well, that's easy. I just put a subject line and a date, and then I do my email. That's true. Every email has a subject line. The subject line is very important. In fact, be careful not to reveal the negative news in the subject line. That's an immediate, not fail, but immediately a deduction in your points because you didn't follow the indirect strategy. So, but an email's formatting certainly should have a subject line. It certainly should have a salutation that ends in a colon, but it also has, very important, a full signature block at the end where you put your name, you put your title, you put your company name, you put your your phone number with extension and your email address. That is a full business signature block, and that should be added to all of your emails in a business environment because people may need to call you, right? Maybe you send an email that's sensitive or difficult to understand. At least they could pick up the phone and call you, right? If you include all that, and that leaves those lines of communication open. So make sure you include that in your email if that's what you're drafting this week. So you have a choice. The other one is a letter to a resort that you're looking to get some information from. Um, and that one is going to be you writing a letter to the secretary or to the people over there and asking them if they could accommodate your conference that you're planning on behalf of your CEO. And there's a lot of information that you need. So the things about writing assignments that you need to know is number one, I'm going to grade you on how it's formatted. So is it formatted like an email? Is it formatted like a letter? Is it formatted like a memo? In this case, did you use the proper order for the negative news message? In other words, the buffer, reasons for the negative news, and then close. And then you're also going to be graded on how your document looks. So remember, business writing is not essay writing. How it looks is just as important as how it reads. So the fact that you would use text design, things like short single-spaced paragraphs, headings, bullet lists, bold text, underlined text, italicized text, all that to make important things stand out so your eye can scan and skim the page. That's business writing. So I'll be looking for the use of that in all of your business documents. And if you don't, you'll automatically be deducted as well. So please utilize those. I mean, especially that routine letter, if you're going to write to the resort asking for information, well, there's a bunch of questions. So that should definitely be a list of questions, not just a paragraph. So things like that make it more readable and more scannable. So you also have your discussion post you started last week on the do's and don'ts of business writing. Remember, this is an ongoing discussion post. It's not you just do it once and you're done. You need to go make your initial list. Then you need to comment on other students' lists. And then you need to make your final list on the last week. So next week you'll be, or the end of this week, excuse me, the end of next week, you'll be making your final list. And that's how you're graded. So whether or not you went in a few different times and graded it, or I'm sorry, added to it. So that's going to be moved. I'm going to put the due date to this week, just so you know. I always put the most current due date, but it isn't due until the end of next week. So, all right, well, that's it for week number 5. Have a great week, everyone. If you need me, get a hold of me in my office hours. If not, you will see me again on video next week.